For the first half hour of today's live streaming program, we have a very sunny day, but now we are suffering from the heavy snowfall again. And now you can see that behind me is the snowy mountain called the Mountain of Anyemaqen. It's now covered by ice and snow. It's one of the biggest mountains in this area, and it's also the largest glaciers inside the Sanjiangyuan National Park. And by my side, there are scientists and experts from this glacier research team. They are preparing for the further researches. They are equipped with the ropes, sticks, and also the equipments, for example, the computers and other recording machineries. And you can also see that they are preparing themselves with the special shoes, because we are standing in this environment with the glaciers inside. So we have to use this special shoes so that we can climb up the mountains and the glaciers. Today we have the greatest pleasure to have invited scientists from this research team, Mr. Zhang You, Professor Zhang You. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear viewers of CCTV News. I'm from southern part of China. I've never seen such heavy snows in the past. And during my trip here, I noticed that there's a great difference between the snowy mountains that I have witnessed in the past and this glacier. We are now standing by the foot of the mountain Anyemaqen. The glacier is one of the important water sources for the Yellow River. We have an altitude here of 6,828 meters. Over there, we call that glacier the Weigele. The glacier Weigele is one of the biggest and longest glacier. And the ice tongue is extended from another mountain until our point of standing. And the total length of this part of the glacier is 16 kilometers. If we use the drone to capture the footage, we can collect a lot of data. And also we have the other machineries to help us with the collection of the data at the land level. For example, the spatial and the other multi-dimensional research machineries. So this time for the research method, you have combined the aerial, the landscape, and also the spatial methods. And you also have some methods to enable some internal investigations for the glaciers. Could you please give us more details about the researches of the glaciers? First of all, we will use the remote control from the satellite. And secondly, we have the drones. We will do the remodeling of the whole area. And we're also studying the environmental conditions and also the river conditions, as well as the topography on the surface of the glaciers and also inside the glaciers. We are also collecting the new data. Well, I've noticed that we have a lot of team members working over there. They have a red box. They're also holding a structure with 3 feet. What is it? This is a multifunctional equipment. It can help us to stabilize the equipment during our observation of the glaciers. Good afternoon, sir. Just now, according to Mr. Zhang, this is a multifunctional machinery. Yes, exactly. It's multifunctional. Compared to the historical data collected by the predecessors, for the glaciers, we are using this multifunctional equipment to collect new data and some updates about the glaciers. We can know the distance of the glaciers as well as the altitude, and we can do this multifaceted observation on the glaciers. So in total, we can know the total look. So this is also part of the equipment. Yes. And I'd like to go back to Professor Zhang. So this time, as you have mentioned, you have applied the satellites to do the aerial observation. And during this round of observation, what kind of new discoveries have you made? We have used the distant observation, and also we have used the big data. For example, we have collected some latest information and statistics about this area. For example, this is the Weigele Glacier. The total area covered by the glacier is 16.99 square kilometers. We have different colors applied here. For example, red, orange, green, etc. Different colors represent the rules of changes of the glaciers over the last 34 years. Back to the year 1987, we used this color, and also for another period for the recent years. So for a period of 7 years, this color signifies the changes, like the advances and retreats of the glaciers. We would like to know whether the glacier has grown or has ablated. We have noticed that for 1 decade, there is advancement of the glaciers, and another for 2 decades, there's retreatment of our glaciers. So after talking about the satellite observation, you have also talked about the observation about the river system. Over there, we can find one of the sources of the Yellow River. We can go over there to check the water out. And Mr. Zhang, on my trip here, I've noticed one piece of rock. I believe it's really beautiful and charming. It's in dark green. Is it a jade? I think you have discovered something precious. I believe that this kind of rock is the result of the collision of 2 major plates of the Earth. And during that great round of collision, many mountains have been formed, including the Himalaya. And at the same time, several major rivers have been formed, including the river He and the river Yangtze and the Yellow River. You have picked up this special rock. It is the result of the environmental reaction. At such a high altitude, you can find this beautiful rock. It's the result of this Earth movement. What is the relationship between this historical Earth movement and our current trip of the glacier researchers? We're now at the foot of the Anyemaqen mountain. It has an important role to play to manage the water volume inside the Yellow River. We believe that the glaciers, they are one of the most sensitive indicators of the climate change. So we can, first of all, observe the status quo of the glaciers to know what are the measures to take in the next step. You can keep it as a souvenir. Now I'm about to summon all the team members. They have to gather here. And we are moving towards one of the sources of the Yellow River. We can find two major forms of the ice stream. One is on the surface of the glaciers. Another is the underground. So just below, we can find the source water of one major sources for the Yellow River. I have this special machine to find the source and detect its position. Please advance 1 meter further. And still 1 meter forward. And 1 meter further. Please wait a second. We have just discovered the major section of the river source. It's also the deepest part of the river. So we're about to dig down the surface of the ice so that we can see the stream. I'm about to take some sample of the water. So that is the water of our mother river, the Yellow River. You can have a taste of it. Later on, I can give you explanations about the source of this water. It tastes good, though it's very cold, but it's also very sweet. We have also made the isotope researches to know better about the area of Anyemaqen. There are two sources of water for this area. One of them comes from the southeastern areas. We know that there is the melting surface of the glaciers. So there's another source coming from the western part. So for the glacier of the Anyemaqen, it's standing between the continental glaciers and the oceanic glaciers. So we can also call it the subcontinental glaciers. So now I'm about to be your guide and take you inside one of the glaciers. So Mr. Zhang, you have mentioned the Qianmuqu stream, which is one of the major sources for the Yellow River. For the name of the mountain, Anyemaqen, there are two parts. First of all, Ani means ancestors, the older generation, predecessors. And for Maqen, it represents the Yellow River. So for the whole combination of the words Anyemaqen in Chinese, it means the ancestor for the Yellow River. Now I'm about to take you inside the ice hole of the glaciers. There's still some distance to go. What kind of spectacular views can we expect to see? Inside the glaciers, you can see the internal structure of the Anyemaqen glaciers. Inside, you can find a lot of layers and also a lot of structures. I've noticed that in the previous researches, team members have also sampled the internal parts of the glaciers because we want to rebuild the climate. We can select the sediment from the lakes and also some samples from the glaciers. Inside this cave of ice, we have discovered something that can tell us the story about 10,000 years ago of the Earth. We know that we have already experienced, in the old days, 1,000 years of ice age, and big events have taken place during the 1,000 years. Please mind your steps, because it's so windy here. We have really complicated structure inside the caves, so we will just leave our cameraman on the top. Now we are inside one of the ice caves. We've mentioned this whole frozen rock. Different layers of the ice patterns. I can give you a metaphor using the trees. You know, when you cut the tree, you can find annual rain. When the weather is wet and warm, then the distance between the annual rains would be larger. And to the contrary, if it's very cold and very dry, then you can see the annual rains very close to each other. That is the same with the glaciers. For example, from the layers, you can find the signs and also the symbols for the accumulation of the ice and snow in the past. During this time of scientific researches, we also study in the balance of the glacial mass. What about the white color? We have a very thick layer here and also much thinner black layers. How do you explain that? We have those drapes here. You know that glaciers can move very fast. On our way here, we can find a lot of moraines and ice strings and also the signs of abrasion. Now, the position we are standing at are actually located at the end of this whole line of glaciers. And inside there's also a hole of ice. It has been formulated during the summer season. It's very deep. Over there you can also notice some ice falls. And also ice needles, etc., different forms of the ice. We also have the glacial park here. Over there you can find a diversity of different forms of the glaciers. So let's go over there and have a check. So look out, because it's very slippery here. Those are the fallen parts from the top of the glaciers. You know that the blackened side inside we can find rocks. The structure is not that intensified due to the influence of temperature and precipitation. Sometimes this blackened part could follow, and that would cause the ice fall. And in comparison to the blackened side, the whiter part, they are more solid. And the rocks have also become an important messenger. Sometimes you can find the patterns look like the petals of flower. It means that we have, in the old days, experienced a solid ice period. A lot of hypotheses have been built up based on the discoveries about those rocks and also the blocks of the ice. With more than 1,000 years of ice age, we have totally changed the history and also the development of the Earth. For example, by then, the level of the seawater was 150 meters lower than the current height. During this ice age, dating back to 13,000 years ago, and afterwards, the four major civilizations of the world have started to grow. And we can know the birth time of those major civilizations thanks to the studies of the glaciers. It's one of the best ways for us to know the history of Earth. Please mind your steps. Now we have the sunshine and also the heavy blow of the wind at the same time. Please just help me out. I'm now stuck in the hole of ice. It's really no easy job to do the glacier researches here in the wild. Now we're about to check out the glacier park over there. Today we have the snowfall, and you know, with the snow in this environment, it will do heavy damage to the eyes of our team members. Because in the wild, with this heavy snow, we don't have the object of reflection. The only thing to reflect the strong light of the snow is our clothes and also skin. And Professor Zhang, I'm now actually stepping on one part of the glaciers. Over there, I've noticed a lot of columns in ice. Those are the ice waterfall. Those are called moraines. Due to the motion of the glaciers, a lot of rocks have been abraded. It looks like We are standing at the bottom of a very big basin. To our two sides, we can find the structures of the mountains looking like the rims of the basin. We call those slim columns of ice the ice needles. We can also find the surface ice string on the top of the mountain. We can also find some surface lakes. Over there, you can also find ice mushrooms. So what is it, ice mushroom? For example, some parts of the ice, they are detached from the mother body ice. In this case, this block of ice has no life anymore. We call it the ice mushroom. Today, due to the weather, we cannot go any further. Some other day, if the weather is good enough, we can climb up the mountain and we can find surely some new discoveries. Maybe we can take this side. The slope is not very steep. Now we can have a closer look at this part of the ice needles. How were the ice needles and also the ice waterfall formed? Please pay attention to those needles. They can be very dangerous. Now you can see they are melting at the same time. When we are around the mountain Anyemaqen, as is mentioned before, this is located at the interface connecting the monsoon area and non-monsoon area. It's like a gateway. When the humidity comes to this area, in the right time of the year, there would be precipitation. In summer, between May to October, the speed of ablation can be very fast. So immediately you can expect a lot of meltwater coming down from the peak of the mountain. Why we have decided to kick off our scientific researches at this moment of the year? Because it would be very challenging and dangerous in the summer season. With the meltwater coming down, it's very slippery on the road. We cannot walk anymore. So we prefer to do our researches in the winter time. And in this case, it's more convenient and more effective to do the scientific research to collect the data on the glaciers so that we can have further supportive proofs to protect our mother river, the Yellow River. We are also doing the comparison between the data collected by the satellite and also by the land equipment. Is it possible for me to go even further up the mountain? I don't suggest you to do that because it's nearly 2 p.m. You know, we have this interface location of the monsoon. We have the strong winds coming from the west. It's very cold and dry. With the strong wind from the west, it can bring down the temperature very rapidly and it can cause the flying snow. And those small granular snow cannot be visible for our eyes. It can create 3 degrees of changes with the temperature. and also 18 degrees of changes with the humidity. That is how significant the change brought by the monsoon from the west part. And one more question, Mr. Zhang. I can feel that this surface was very flat and smooth. This is created by the rainfall, by the precipitation. When there's the rainfall, it can erode the surface of the ice and also the rock. When it's eroded to a certain extent, then there will be the ice fall. Just now we have visited another cave of the ice that has been formulated by the same movement. And over there you can also discover a cirque, by the bottom of which you can also find the accumulation of water first and then the ice. So today we have covered almost half of the area of the glaciers. Maybe we have to call it the end, because here we don't have sufficient oxygen. It's really hard for us to talk a lot more. And I'm from southern part of China. It's really unforgettable experience for me to visit those glaciers. So that's all for today's program. Thank you.